Fucking clankers. Fucking clankers.
I feel like I shrunk. I feel very short today. I feel
Fucking
like
clankers.
my chair, somebody has invaded my space.
I think your chair is. I think your chair
I'm
is
shorter.
like cranked all the way down.
It is.
Yeah.
And I'm short. There we go. Oh, I feel so tall. Look, go Kraken. I mean, they're not in the playoffs. You don't even watch sports. So wasted on you.
I mean, I know.
Kraken is a hockey team in Seattle, but
I know what a Kraken is.
not that kind of Kraken. Wow, I feel like so. Yeah, I was just very slouchy because my chair was so little. And then, I felt like I was in. Have you ever gone into an elementary school and had to sit in the little chair, and then you feel like your knees are up to your face? That's how I felt. Oh
no! When I was there, like I fit the chair.
Mm-hmm. Well, I more than fit the chair then.
Yeah, I was
like,
I ain't going
talks.
back there.
You never had to do like book talks in like a middle school or high school or anything?
No. I mean,
ooh, well, I'm sorry. I feel like I just flexed on you and that feels wrong. I'm going to scrub that out of the audio.
I feel like no, I feel like your books would have been more like up their alley, probably.
Yeah, middle high school. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Oh, hello. We're here to talk about the GATE program.
I've done zero research other than my weird stories.
Okay, so, that's what I'm hoping. So this feels like a reverse of the doom hole, only it's just one subject and deep dive. And I did a ton of research. Like I could have done a solo, but how fun would that be? Not fun without you. So now I can just hit you with information and you can just chill. And I want your stories and I want your impressions too. So, and then, oh my God. And then right before we got on, I got the weirdest I have the weirdest story that is connected to this whole GATE thing. I swear to you.
No kidding.
I can't wait to hit you with it. Okay. So for the listener and for Jesse, if you went to elementary school in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, do you remember being tested by a stranger or a group of strangers? Did you ever get pulled out for a special class with others from maybe even different grades, made to drink something pink or fluoride? For whatever reason, right now, many are remembering the details of GATE programs, but who was behind those school programs and what was their purpose? Well, we're going to get into it today. And we're going to talk about, like Jesse was saying, our own memories about it. But first, I wanted to just do an exercise. Now, if you're driving a car or in a bike or something where you have to be in control of your body, maybe you should hold off on this part and just skip ahead like a minute. But for the rest of you, let your mind drift back to those innocent days of youth. Okay, so picture your elementary school, the one that, even if you attended more than one, the one that sticks out, the teacher, your friends, recess. Did you play kickball or hopscotch or jump rope? Now imagine your desk. Did it have that front load opening with that special well to hold your pencils? How about the pencil sharpener? Was it mounted at your teacher's desk at the front of the room? How did that classroom smell? Do you remember any other details like pirate paste that smelled like wintergreen, that ripe scent of bodies when the weather turned hot and all of your class was reassembled after recess on the rug, sitting crisscross applesauce, so everybody smelled a little sweaty? I mention all this as a precursor because only you know what it felt like to live during those years. And if you need to, pause right now and write down some of your stronger recollections. I'm sure I missed a ton, like school lunches. Did you bring your own in a sack or have a fancy lunchbox? Or did you turn in a little paper ticket and receive a hot lunch in the cafeteria? What about the school library or the gym? Any art projects you remember doing, and art supplies? What about those special classroom jobs? My teachers had this rotation that changed week to week. Write down everything you want and make sure you're thorough because we're going to deep dive in a second and I don't want to influence your memories. So back to gate though. Did you have a stranger in a suit or more than one that felt kind of formal coming into your classroom to observe the class? Did the teacher explain that they were from maybe a local college to do a study? Did they bring with them maybe an oversized case with latches and a handle? And inside was equipment that included knobs and dials. And you were sent one by one to the back of the room and told to put on these large headphones that plugged into the case, and you were asked to identify tones. I said inside the classroom, but I specifically remember a trailer, one of those mobile trailers or portables that they needed when the schools outgrew the number of neighborhood kids. Now, do you remember being tested like that, Jesse? And what was your experience if you do?
I remember the headphones. And I remember, this is a hearing test.
Yeah.
And I also remember that we didn't do it in the classroom. We were taken to another place. And if I remember correctly, it was the gym.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then they would take you back, like you said, they'd take you back and they put the headphones on you. And do your hearing test or whatever they said it was.
Just as you said that, I remembered something. Do you remember this? And I wonder if our listeners will. You went one at a time to get tested, but then they told you the name and they said, go touch that student and call them back. It's their turn. They would tell you, do you remember being told, now go get this student and bring them back and tell them to come back?
No, I remember it being more a situation where we were in a line, and then somebody would come prompt us and take us back.
Yeah.
I don't remember if we were arranged in any sort of order.
Mm-hmm. Like not even alphabetical. You don't remember. It was probably just the
I think it was just like they took us in a class or whatever, or two classes at a time and like had us all line up.
Okay. And you remember the headphones. And what do you remember about the headphones?
It was designed and could have been, okay, as far as I know, that they said, hey, this is a hearing test. And you were supposed to raise, either do you hear it in your right ear? Raise your right hand. If you hear it in your left ear, your left hand. I remember that it was I always had a problem with it.
You did? Like what kind of problem? What do you mean? Did you say you had a problem or did the people?
Well, yeah, I felt like at the time that my hearing wasn't good, which my hearing is fine, because I always struggled to hear the tones. But you were talking about about the you downloaded one of the sound tests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think what I perceived as not being able to hear well was me picking up on tones that maybe I wasn't supposed to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know what you mean.
So I was extra pulled into it and trying to keep up with, I guess, the tones that were underlying the tones.
Yeah.
or whatever it was that I feel like is, this is probably the wrong word, but whatever subliminal thing they had going on underneath the tones.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I picked up on that somehow and was trying to keep up with that and struggling to pay attention to the obvious tones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also because there's an adult there, you're trying to discern, is this the tone they mean? Because I was a people pleaser as a kid, and I remember
they always either stood to the side or kind of sort of 3/4 and then more like towards your back, where
back inside. Yep.
Their reaction.
Yeah. And I remember I did hear things underneath. I specifically heard different languages. I don't know what languages they were. I didn't recognize Spanish because my classroom was bilingual. And so I would have, but there were other languages that I wasn't familiar with that I heard underneath as I was listening for the tones. And when I started leaning in, like that's what I do when I'm listening closely. I guess as a kid I did. I looked at them and all I can say is they look like hungry wolves. Like you could just picture them wanting to moida me, like wanting to chomp me because I looked delicious. Like I was about to do something that they really wanted. And so my fight or flight was like, back off and pretend like I don't hear anything. And so
Yeah.
I went back to like that and just locked it down. So do you remember, did you test into whatever, like this is the weirdest thing. They never gave us results of those tests. Our parents never got a letter except if you were going to be in this GATE program or this special pullout program.
I don't know. This all was a thing that it was for me, it was like what I remember of it. Okay. Not saying that some sort of other testing didn't go on earlier than that, but when I pull this up in my memory, we had an elementary school that was just the fourth and the fifth grade. Those were the only two grades on that particular campus.
Oh, wow.
And so
okay.
this was in the fourth grade. I remember that I really liked my teacher. Shout out to Miss Boatner. She was awesome.
I loved my fourth grade teacher too.
She was awesome. And so, I really liked my teacher, and they did a thing where they split us. They basically came to us and they said, "Hey, we've hired a new teacher, and I do not remember her name, but I can see her face." They're like, "We have hired a new teacher, and we are going to fill her class by splitting this class." And they had specific people picked out. You are going to go to the other ladies. You're going to finish out
the year basically
over there, in this other class. And I was part of the group that was supposed to go to the other class. I didn't want to go to the point that I went and told my parents that, like, "Hey, will you talk to because they knew, they knew principals." And I was like, I was like, I really like being in her class. I don't want to go to the other class. Will you go talk to somebody and make me not have to change classes? And they did. Yeah. And it kind of dropped it. So I don't know. Was that just like, "Hey, we hired a new teacher and we got to pull people into her new class," which seems odd to me now when I think about it. Like, why would you just hire this random new teacher in the middle of
partway through
the school year, and like just take a class and like
I could see a student teacher, but a student teacher would be shadowing your teacher, right?
Yeah, I know.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because my teacher had been there and was a pro. You know what I mean? She, had been there for decades. So it really seems odd to me now. So was it just that thing, or was I actually invited into this program you're talking about, and
you told your parents,
got myself out of it? And now I'm thinking, like, okay, was it just that I really liked my teacher, or was it just really that I got bad vibes about going into
or
this
both? Yeah,
it could have been both. Yeah, could have been both. So I don't know. I don't know, Jen.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because my fourth grade teacher was a first year teacher. Her name was Miss Ferris, like a Ferris wheel. And we loved her. And, but I had changed school districts, because we had moved into a house from our apartment. So I had been tested for the Alpha program. It wasn't called GATE. It was called Alpha. And the school district I was in was Richland, school district, which, if you know your history about, the atomic bomb being built, it was right across the river it was the little town, the factory town that they made when they opened up the Hanford nuclear reactor, area one, so they could refine to create the plutonium that went into the bombs. And so Richland was the the factory town that they created. Well, that's where my apartment had been with my family. And I was tested there for what they called the Alpha program. And then the next year was fourth grade for me, and I got to move into Pasco School District, which was cool because my mom was an administrator in Pasco School District for the bilingual programs. And then I remember that it was the first time I'd ever had a woman principal. And so I went in, I asked for a meeting with her secretary, and I went in and I said, it's about time I had a woman principal. And she said, I really like you. And I didn't know, but she'd been a family friend to my mom and my dad for a long time. And she's the reason my mom got hired right after their divorce to be a kindergarten teacher in the district. But here's the thing is that was back in the day. This is the 1970s early. And so they didn't really share records. Like they had everybody do an assessment right off the bat. So they knew where your math skills were, your reading skills were, writing skills, but they didn't share records like that back then. And so whether I tested into the Alpha program or not, I'll never know because I changed school districts. So I was a clean slate and I loved being in the main classroom. And maybe they thought that was enough for me. They didn't want to like stretch me and have me be with a bunch of strangers once a week. But I did have my oldest best friend. I met her because she was in the gifted program. She was a year ahead in her classes anyway. They had already accelerated her a year, but then she was in that pullout program. And I remember her and because she was in band, we played the flute. We would always like sit together when she was there once a week. And we became best friends over the course of that year and the next year into the rest of our life. But I remember that they had their classroom. It was multiple age groups in the portables out by the basketball courts, actually. And I remember that they had this brown butcher paper over the windows. And that always seems so weird to me because like it's always sunny in the Tri-Cities. And we would go into one of those portables for band and all the windows are always unblocked. It was just odd that they had these. And I remember, if I'm remembering correctly, that Deb would talk about decoding worksheets to decode things, right? And I remember doing that in the main classroom in fourth grade too. And I always thought it was kind of fun. But there were other kids in the program and they remembered disparate things. Some remember tanagrams, like those colorful shapes. And they'd say, can you take these shapes and build something bigger, like a boat shape or whatever? Others remember these cards. Okay, some people say they were black and white, and others remember just like your basic colors, red, yellow, green, blue. And they had to like predict, they'd be put in an envelope and they'd be asked to predict what was in there. And they remember being prompted, visualize, visualize, visualize is what these like teachers would say to them over and over. And there were other tests that they had to do also. It was just a very odd thing. And it's been weird how people are all of a sudden remembering it now. The other thing I find interesting is you were mentioning, Jesse, that it was linked to, they told us in Pasco in Eastern Washington, it was a hearing test. Well, you know what? I wonder if that's for all the kids that went home and said, we had hearing tests. Like they're that kind of kid that told their parents what was going on in school. And what parent is going to have a problem with having their kid tested for hearing loss or whatever?
Nobody.
It's innocuous. Yeah. So this is what I found out, some more of what I found out. So weeks after we were tested, parents of a few kids could be notified that their children were going into these GATE programs. And I just want to go back to the basics. GATE, it stands for Gifted and Talented Education.
That's what they called it with mine. They called it.
They did in Texas.
They just called it Gifted and Talented.
Okay, because I think what parent wouldn't love to hear their kid in a program with the words gifted and talented?
They loved it.
Oh,
Trust me.
yeah. These programs were spun differently across the US. And like I mentioned, mine was right across from the Hanford nuclear reactor. And it was right at a time when those high minded scientists were basically underemployed or unemployed. And I think that was not a coincidence. It was on purpose. But so in our instance, it was called alpha as in number one, as in A. And even the programs, the other names in other districts included the words TAG, LEAP, Extended Learning Program. And again, mine was called Alpha. These were pull-out programs. They usually met weekly. And like I mentioned in Pasco was no different. Sometimes they were multiple grades that were lumped together. And I was asking, out in the realms of people, what did they do in the gate classes? And the answers were really complicated. And I did research too. For many participants, the details are hazy at best. Some suffered memory loss about the entire program, like literally forgetting they were even in it unless they asked their parents. While others in recent months were talking about those black and white cards or a photo of those clunky testing headphones that you were talking about, Jesse, which rattled loose a couple of recollections with me. They also remembered maybe maps and strange activities like guessing the number of candies in a jar. Others remembered those brown paper coverings that I did too in that classroom. And they remembered unfamiliar adults were the teachers. Many report their most potent memory being of a pink drink or fluoride, which they were told to ingest. And others recall red tablets that stained their teeth. And some have speculated online that those might have been implemented to wipe kids' memories. And those red tablets, Jesse, you and I had a text thread about that this last summer.
Oh, I didn't remember the red tablets until we were texting.
Yeah.
And then I had the most vivid memories of it ever. Like to the point where like
it was visceral.
I could see how bright the color was of the red. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you'd spit it in the sink after you were done. When I asked people, because so it was in the 5th grade that they had their gifted and talented group.
Yeah.
And then, which I don't know if they had planned it the year before by like splitting the splitting thing.
Yeah.
But they had an official, like if you were in that program, you would go to a special classroom for, a certain, I think it was a couple of times a week, 3 times a week. Maybe it was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing for an hour or so, maybe 2 hours. And and these were all my friends, and, the school wasn't that big. This was, like you said, this was all in a section of the school, the oldest section of the school, which was basically, imagine 2 long stretches of just okay, like an old school motel where it's just like,
that's what I pictured.
Yeah. You pull up and like there's the door to your room, and like it's just a room, what I mean? No second floor, no nothing. And then when you leave the door to the classroom, you're outside on the sidewalk. And so there were 2 rows of those things, okay? And so they I was in a class where they had just the year before, they had taken and turned one of those classrooms into 2. And what they did was they basically just like cut the wall out between the 2 classrooms. Okay. So you go back and forth. Okay. So there was a row of desks, and they had us split into pods, and there was English and social studies and history and that sort of stuff was all one pod. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything having to do with that. And then we went to another classroom, all of us together. Okay. And that was math, science, that stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, so there was a group of us, and everybody that I was sitting with were people who are in the gifted and talented section. And there were 2 or 3 of us that didn't go to the special class.
Yeah.
Okay. But we were in this class with them. Okay. And we faced off against a group of other students. Their desks were facing us and the teacher was in the middle,
Yeah.
and they had no connection to the gifted and talented program whatsoever. And so we were over here doing different work than the other section of the class was. We were in more advanced workbooks. We had more advanced reading books. So everybody would hey, we're going to lift the boat together, which,
right.
That's awesome. But
that
now
feels like interesting collaboration.
I'm not sure if that's exactly everything that was going on.
Exactly. And
because 2 or 3 of us would be left in our section while the rest of them went to gifted and talented a couple of times a week. And then you would ask, you'd ask your friends, like, well, what do you guys even do in there?
Yeah.
And it was always like, oh, we play Dark Tower, which was like this game, but this Milton Bradley game from like the 80s. This would have been about 1983. Yeah. It was just weird. And I was like, well, what else do you do? They're like, no, well, nothing, like they never really had clear. And it was like you said,
oh my gosh,
it was the door going into that room. Like you couldn't look in the window from the sidewalk and see what was happening in there, Okay. I'm not saying it's anything like
I'm not either, but
I'm not saying it's like anything super weird. I'm just saying there was some kind of testing or something like you're talking about.
They were creating some sort of environment. Everything was on purpose, I think, even the butcher paper. So I have had this feeling ever since I had this connection of mine being called Alpha and nobody else's, and Richland, Washington. So I dug down deep with that, and it connects with what you're saying about creating an environment. And it isn't our imaginations, because I think that it all relates to war and creating a different kind of soldier. So if anybody listening has ever seen the movie Oppenheimer starring Cillian Murphy, then you know the Hanford Project. So I lived downriver from it, the site known as Site W, which was established in 1943 as part of that Manhattan Project. I swear it all relates. Hanford Engineer Works from Hanford.gov and its B reactor was the first full-scale plutonium production reactor in the world. And I found this from their website. Plutonium manufactured at the site was used in the first atomic bomb, which was tested in the Trinity nuclear test, and in the Fat Man bomb used in the bombing of Nagasaki. Why am I mentioning this? Because of this next bit. The town of Richland, established by the Manhattan Project, became self-governing in 1958, and the residents were allowed to purchase their properties. After sufficient plutonium had been produced, the production reactors were shut down between 1964 and 1971. 71. That's
the year I was born, by the way.
Wow. And I'm 69, but that's a significant year, not just because you were born, Jesse, but because within a few months, the Marland report was issued nationwide that for the first time defined the best students as being gifted. The report stated that if gifted children weren't challenged, they would act up. Within months, states developed programs to identify and challenge gifted students. Those included pull-out classes and accelerated learning classes, too. All of this happened to coincide with the Cold War that was heating up between the United States and Russia. And I found this from Hannah Bright's article titled, "Unveiling the Mysteries of Soviet Parapsychology Research and Psychic Warfare." Because I'm asking this, were they training psychics? Here's what the article said.
I 100% believe that they were.
Me too. Spoiler alert.
Before you even go into what you're about to read. But
exactly. Yes, doesn't this resonate? And also about the combined
and
classes.
Have.
And Jesse, talking about the combined classroom where your teacher's in the middle and there's kids that are like mainstream classroom, and then there's kids that are like higher learning kids or whatever, being together, it's like do you understand that Marlin report was basically saying we got to keep the gifted children engaged? That was his whole mindset. So this is what the article said. The Cold War era saw the Soviet Union explore parapsychology research deeply. They looked into psychic abilities, extrasensory perception, and how the mind affects matter. Their efforts in paranormal studies were unmatched, even compared to Western nations. Soviet scientists studied telepathy, psychokinesis, which is moving stuff with your brain and your mind, and remote viewing. Their work was often secret with military uses in mind. This made the study of science and the supernatural a unique battlefield during that time. While the US had its own projects like Project Stargate, which some people know about now that they've disclosed so much, the Soviet Union was more committed. They set up special institutions and invested heavily in psychic research. This mix of science and the unknown is a fascinating part of both psychology and military history. By the 1970s, they were deeply studying ESP with lots of government support, end quote. Yeah, and that was 1970s. I've got more from that article if you want to hear it, but do you have comments about that part?
Okay. I am 100% on board, like I just said, with that's exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were when you're talking about staying engaged, okay.
Keeping kids interested.
I'm almost not sure if I wasn't part of a control group in the control group, me and like 3 or 4 other kids, because I didn't go to the gate class, but I was with them on that side of the room, whatever the fuck that meant. You know what I mean? We were able to, we were all advanced readers and all that jazz, you know what I mean? And so we were able to knock our whatever work we were assigned out pretty quick. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they didn't really challenge us on what we did. Like we had stacks of manila paper. We would draw. We would write. We put on a play for the whole class at one point. Then like, I think I wrote it as far as I remember. And then, it was this weird mashup of like Somewhere in Time and like, some Star Wars or some shit. And then,
it's so cute. I love this so much.
Like we could read, we could do kind of, and like nobody, and nobody,
it was like free time, but like unstructured free time. And you had all the access to all the different things.
Yeah. And then we would also like, with our classmates who were still trying to catch up as far as like reading and stuff like that. We would engage with them and be put in groups and like, little book clubs and like, read, and like we'd stand up, we'd all have to write a story and we'd stand up and read it in front of the class, but we were almost kind of like tutors in a way.
You were?
Yeah, but it was just really strange like that. And like, I still don't understand.
Do you have any recollection of people that weren't your principal of the school sitting in the classroom and observing what was going on?
It seems like I do, but it's hazy.
It's really muddled. Hazy. Yeah.
I don't really remember it.
Yeah. Well, the Soviet Union, basically the key takeaways were that they led in parapsychology research during the Cold War. Studies focused on telepathy, psychokinesis, and remote viewing that I mentioned, and the research had potential military applications. They had dedicated institutions that were established for paranormal studies. Soviet efforts surpassed ours in the Western countries, and the research blended scientific methods with supernatural exploration. Those are the key takeaways. So that we understand that. But my caveat to her article is that, do you think that they stopped doing this? Do you think that we stopped doing this? The CIA got involved in this as well. And I'll tell you more about that in a bit. But when they start doing something and they have some success and it costs them next to nothing, they're going to keep doing it. That's what I think.
I mean, I know this all folded into like remote viewing and stuff like that.
It totally does.
Another strangeness that I found odd, and I don't know if this was a thing with you guys too.
Yeah.
But they were. I'm weird about the spine and the chakra points. I feel like it's an energy thing. The
too.
whole.
Yeah.
And so they were constantly checking us to see if we had scoliosis. It's in air quotes. Like, do you remember that? But it seems like they would test us more than once a year to make sure our spine was straight. I always found that. I found that as I look back on it now, I'm like, why were they fucking checking our spine so often?
All the time.
All the time.
I remember that, and it went into junior high because I remember that for a girl is when you're taking your shirt off, and some people have stuff, some people don't, and it's embarrassing because you're naked. They didn't let you just lift up your shirt as a girl. You had to take off your shirt.
I was a fat kid. It was fucking embarrassing.
It was awful, wasn't it?
No, yeah.
But I remember when my daughters got to that age, and I'm like, I remember asking one of them, I don't know if it was Nora or Bryn, like, did they do this? Are they checking your spine for scoliosis? And they were like, what?
Yeah, what? It's a thing that just stopped.
It just stopped. Okay, let's zoom back out again for the bigger picture because we're back in, there was this Wicked Mysteries podcast, which of course I have links to in the show notes. And this is what they had to say about that testing that happened across the classrooms in the US. Those headphones connected to that case with the dials inside, they played what some testers, and Jesse, you talked about this because we were texting about it. They played what some testers called tones as a part of, again, what they called hearing tests. They'd instruct, listen to the tones, listen. Often what they played were hemi-sync hypnosis or meditation tapes created by Robert Monroe of the Monroe Institute. The tapes were thought to enhance remote viewing, a part of CIA-run Project Stargate, and they were also said to help initiate out-of-body experiences. And I think that's maybe what I had because I was hearing other languages. We don't know why they were used in the GATE program. All I've got are my own memories and the experiences others have shared. So I talked about the hearing voices in languages besides English beneath those tones and ocean waves. But because the adults looked at me with that like very needy, salivating expression, I just shut up and played dumb. Others said they felt, saw, or heard things that led them to be put into those special pull-out programs. One thing that's emerged from the collective memory is those pink liquids or swish and spit fluoride in the name of tooth health. Again, like hearing health and dental health, your parents are never going to have a problem with, right? And we talked about the red tablets that dyed teeth for a time. Many have connected the dots to that moment in Men in Black when a person's told to look at the light and zap, boom, like that. Their memories are wiped clean. And specific to the fluoride, if you're not woo, I'm just going to let you know, fluoride is known to calcify the pineal gland, or what older cultures call your third eye, the center for psychic powers. Even scientists have proven that the pineal gland regulates melatonin, which impacts our sleep. Some experiencers recall the use of metronomes. Jesse, do you remember metronomes?
Yeah, I remember that being a thing.
Yeah. And then others have this freckle in their inner arm from that age group. Do you have a freckle in your inner arm, like right about here up your forearm?
Which arm?
It could be left or right. And it's like midway up your forearm, the bottom part of your arm. Do you have a freckle there, like a prominent freckle? My big brother does, but I don't.
I think so.
And then others say that there's a forehead scar that they have.
You're not going to be able to see this, but.
Yeah. And it's an audio, but let me see. Oh, you do. There's something there. And then what about
I'll take a picture of it.
Okay.
We can do whatever.
That'd be great. And then also there's a forehead scar that some people say they don't remember. Their parents don't remember anything happening to their head, but they had a little scar. And one thing that set off my own Spidey sense alarm system is the common thread of kids in GATE being INFJ or INTJ. TJ. If you know what is it, the Briggs
Yeah,
Myers
my
personality test.
I don't remember what I'm supposed to be.
Okay, so INFJ and INTJ are relatively rare in the world, but they are common in gait. And like I said, I myself am an INFJ, so that really strikes a chord with me. I had never read that before, but it makes so much sense.
I'll take the test again. We'll post it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, do. And send me a link because I can take it again too.
I'm looking on eBay while Jen's talking, trying to find one of those hearing test rigs.
And no luck yet?
Nope. There's articles about them, but
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I was like, surely one of those damn things is still floating around in the world, right? Wouldn't you like to get your hands on one of those things?
Isn't that interesting? That tells you a lot.
I bet they were all dumped in a big hole, like copies of like E.T. by Atari, and like buried.
Yeah. I bet you a nickel they are. Yeah. So I found this amazing, just amazing. I would call it journalism. It's independent journalism done by the White Rabbit Report on Substack. And they asked this question: did the CIA influence the GATE program for intelligence, recruitment, and mind control? And they make a solid case for a connection between gifted education and covert operations. They ask this: what if the GATE program wasn't just designed to teach gifted children, but to study them, to track them, maybe even to groom them? And that made me feel uncomfortable, us being groomed.
Because, I mean, that's actually a part of the mythology plot points in the X-Files.
And I wonder,
it's in the
whistleblower.
It's in the zeitgeist, right?
Yeah, because this is where it gets really strange. And I said that when I was typing up my notes a couple days ago, but I'm going to go even stranger than them. But here's what the White Rabbit said:
Stranger Things, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Dozens of former students across decades and districts recall the same bizarre experiences, which are including, and I'm just going to summarize what they said: tests they can't explain, memories that don't quite feel like they're theirs, a sense later in life that someone had been watching them. And the deeper you dig, White Rabbit writes, the more questions emerge. The article explains that the impact of the launching of Sputnik. What was that impact on the United States in 1957? It was that Russia had been first to space. Mm-hmm. And as a response, Eisenhower signed the National Defense Education Act on September 2nd, 1958. And White Rabbit describes that law as a sweeping Cold War era law designed not to improve education, but to weaponize it. Officially, it was aimed to strengthen science, math, and language instruction. Unofficially, though, it was a call to arms. It was to identify and cultivate the next generation of scientists, engineers, and operatives. Mm-hmm. That urgency and mission culminated in the creation of GATE programs meant to search for the best young minds systematically and pretty much secretly. Like it's like an open secret, right? The parents are like, my kid is gifted. So they weren't hiding this. They include an article that backs up my own personal theory that all those and underemployed scientists at the Hanford area, I think they were employed to head up this effort. The article, written by the New York Times in 1956, is titled "Special Training for Gifted Urged." And it was written by Jean Curavan. And it quotes Rear Admiral Flinman G. Rickover, one of the chiefs of the Naval Reactors Branch of the Atomic Energy Commission. I feel there's my smoking gun, who said the schools need radical change because the system is neglecting its talented youth. So before GATE, there was something called Project Talented, and it was headed by military psychologist John C. Flanagan, which launched in 1960 and tested almost 500,000 teens. They were tested, they were profiled, and categorized. It basically inventoried teenagers. It also identified possible capabilities and threats, and it tracked participants for decades. So that's like my dad's age. They identified people that could be programmed or utilized. That's their verbiage. Now, for you and me, Jesse, and others listening, enter the GATE programs. Project Talents tests were modified so they could be used on kids. And this relates to something you said at the top, Jesse. They made tests feel like games. So you talk about that Black Tower game. That's what they would remember coming back on. Most participants were being measured for how well they could think outside of the box, which
almost makes me wonder if they weren't kind of in league with the
game makers,
with the game makers. I'm not trying to shout out the. But we all know who you are. But like, remember they also made Simon. Remember that thing? Where you have to like hit the colors
boop, boop, in the same order and see how far you could go. And I could do that forever.
They made a lot. They got into a lot of like suddenly, oh, electronic games are a thing. And like they were all like a sort of like, are we training people for something and making it look like a game?
The way that the White Rabbit talks about it, it's the government was looking for and trying to enhance the abilities of divergent thinkers. Now, when you're talking about the games, I think you're exactly right, because okay, the thing that I found that was so unsettling to me that was new this week, a lot of this was new, but this one, do you remember going into the doctor's office for like whatever your checkup and they had that magazine, the Highlights magazine? And okay, that was created by one of the creators of the Project Stargate.
Say what?
One
like
of the
Highlights Kids magazine was created by that?
Yep. And so it's our smoking gun again.
That's kind of all I really need to know. That's all I need to hear. I had no idea, but now it makes perfect sense.
Doesn't it? I remember, here's the other thing that, okay.
Did they give you a thing called Weekly Reader in school?
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. They were giving those things out for free.
All of these things, I think, are proof that these
I used to have a stack of those fucking things from when I was a kid, too. I wish I still had them.
No, you don't, because I feel like those would be so interesting to look back on.
No, I mean, I wish I still had them. I can still see them where they used to be stacked up in the top of my closet when I was a kid.
Nuts. Well, I think that it's all proof that our government, maybe even the alphabet agencies, were recruiting, using these things to recruit and change, modify divergent thinkers. So as I was typing up that last bit about the Highlights magazine last night, I remember, do you remember this, Jesse? I remember being asked to stare at two images and like let my eyes blur and stare at two images. And they asked me what appeared in the middle. And you know what appeared for me is a glowing dot. It was like a throbbing dot. Almost like a smoke alarm that needs its battery fixed, but I didn't tell him. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I just see two things blurred. Because again, it felt like they were just like leaning in, like, I know you see something. Do you remember anything like that?
I remember all kinds of, I guess you would call them IQ tests now.
Uh-huh.
And could have. I don't remember that in particular.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you don't, but let me know if it emerges after our conversation, because some of these things are buried so deep in us for whatever reason.
I remember there was a lot of tactile things. They like put the shapes together, and like and they would have that stuff printed out too, like what shape fits here, just the kind of the stuff that you think about, like when with an IQ test or something like that.
I think that it was all connected to the Cold War. I think you're in agreement with that. And
100%.
I found the creepiest thing, I think, that it explains everything to me. I was doing the research and all of a sudden I saw a comment that said, research First Earth Battalion, Esalon materials, and it's ESALON materials, First Earth Battalion. So this is real. Lieutenant Colonel Jim Channon's First Earth Battalion, inspired by the 1970s Human Potential Movement at the Esalon Institute. Oh, an ESALEN. Sorry, guys. Proposed creating warrior monks using techniques like yoga, meditation, psychic training, and environmentalism. It aimed to improve soldiers' mental and physical abilities through non-traditional holistic approaches, influencing military training. So this was thought to be the new age of military. The manual that actually exists, and I'm going to have links to it in the show notes. It's on CIA.gov. This was thought to be the new age military. The manual incorporated ideas like that warrior monks, rainbow power, and gentle tactics to create a new type of military force that prioritized planetary well-being, but also psychic abilities. The first battalion manual has been reprinted by Amazon, and it outlined the use of techniques such as Aikido for energy awareness, hypnotherapy, meditation, and biofeedback. They're making it sound so good, but it doesn't take much of a leap to see that there's a dark side of it. Controlling other people's thoughts, influencing other people to act a certain way. This Jim Channon was a U.S. soldier who had served in Vietnam, and he is best known for his ideas about this new military of super soldiers to be organized along New Age lines. There's a book of the same name that was published in 1982. If all this sounds familiar, it inspired the book The Men Who Stare at Goats by journalist John Ronson. So Channon spent time in the 70s with many people in California, credited in starting the Human Potential Movement, and subsequently wrote an operations manual for a First Earth Battalion. And that manual is widely available. I want to check it out. I want to download it. I don't think I want to buy it from evil Jeff Bezos, but I definitely want to read it.
We'll get with me. We'll find it. There's other ways to find things.
Yeah. Okay. Let's make sure that happens. But this Channon, so when he was doing his design of this new battlefield uniform, he wanted to include pouches for ginseng regulators, divining tools, foodstuffs to enhance people's night vision, and a loudspeaker that would automatically emit indigenous music and words of peace. And it's been fictionalized, this First Earth Battalion, as the New Earth Army, if you've heard of it before. Tell me this doesn't relate. They're trying to put a happy spin on it.
And you know what it makes me think of? You watch Lost?
Yes.
It's the Dharma Initiative. It's exactly what it is. Think about it. It's the Dharma Initiative.
Oh my God. That just decalcified my third eye this week. I feel like you decalcified it last week.
If you want to take some shit back to pop culture, I'm your man.
Oh my God, Jesse. What I find interesting is, okay, the things that were done to us, I feel like I learned, maybe that's what helped me become aware of my own energy. And I had experiences when I was little before I had ever been tested by the GATE program. So I knew that there was something weird going on in that area that enhanced energies. But did I ever tell you about that gnome thing that happened to me, Jesse, in the woods?
The gnome thing? No, please. Please elaborate.
Okay. So my big brother it's one of those things, because I'm sure your sister has stories about this too. Being a little sister, my big brother was invited to go with the Gerwells, the family, to go do something. I don't remember if it was bowling or what it was, something fun. And I was left behind. We were living in this apartment building in Richland, Washington, and there was a playground, but really I say playground. It was basically gravel and a couple swings that got way too hot because we live in the fucking desert. And I was just so mad. And the only thing that I could find to do was walk around and pick up those plastic otter pops. People would just leave their empty wrappers there, and I would pick them up and I'd go, oh, Alexander the Grape, oh this, oh that. And I'd pick them up and stack them and throw them away. And finally I got so bored that I went out into the dirt area where there's this little street called Jadwin Avenue. And there was this big mound of dirt, and people in the neighborhood were always kicking it over because they wanted to drive their car directly on Jadwin Road, and it was supposed to block them. And I was digging through the dirt with my hands, and I was just so mad, and I was sweaty, and I was hot, and I went under the trees, which were these like sickly sycamore trees, or, they had the big pom poms. And all of a sudden I looked down, and there's this little old man, and he was shorter than me, and I was really short. He was shorter than me, and he had this little white beard. He looked like a garden gnome looking back, but we didn't have garden gnomes. And he says, I want you to remember this. Want you to remember yourself and your abilities. And he hands me this piece of amber. I didn't know it was amber. It was just like this little teardrop of like petrified sap, but I didn't know. I just was like, oh, thank you. And then he just disappeared. And I ran back to the apartment, and I waited for my brother, and I said, look what I found. Look what I found. And he goes, oh my God, let me look it up in my book, my fossil book. And he goes, that's amber. That's worth a lot of money. And this is before Jurassic Park, when people knew about amber and right. It's before that. It's like decades before that. And he goes, I want that. Do you want to trade? And I said, yeah. And he threw in all of his Richie Rich comic books and
how rich can you get? Banana.
Exactly. And then he threw in a nickel.
You know what? I've got
dime.
a fucking stack of Richie Rich comic books. Yeah. I got a whole box full
They
of
were my favorite. Those in Spider-Man. And so he gave me all his Richie Rich comic books for the piece of amber. And I was under him. I had totally forgotten about all this. I remembered that I traded my biggest treasure I would ever have, that piece of amber, to my brother for some comic books and a nickel and a dime. But I didn't remember the gnome until I was deep under hypnosis. And and the person asked me, do you have a question? I said, I want to know about the guy, the old man that handed me something in the woods. And she said immediately, she goes, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because that's yours to recollect, but he gave you a piece of amber, and amber is nature's zip drive. It's a memory stick. It was, and that's why he gave you the amber, because you're who you are. Your basically Akashic record was on that piece of amber, and you were able to just download it right when he gave it to you. And so it doesn't matter that you don't have it anymore.
That's pretty interesting, because that's like that's sort of like that's big in Fringe too. I don't know if you ever watched Fringe.
What's Fringe? Is that a TV show?
Yeah. You would be all over that shit. You should find it. Yeah.
Wait, about the amber?
Yeah. But there's basically, not to give anything away, but there's a situation where two universes are bleeding into one another.
Yeah.
And where they have these break points where the veil between universes gets weak.
It's totally
they spray this stuff that turns into amber that seals the breaches. And if you happen to be near one of those at the time and you get trapped in there, you're just trapped in suspended animation for,
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of, so when you say that, like, that's kind of holding all of your Akashic records. That's the first thing that popped into my head. I was like,
and her specifically calling it like nature's memory stick, or nature's, zip drive, whatever you call it, thumb drive.
Because it's like that. Because it's like you're, it's
it is. You're freezing it. You're stopping it in place.
Yeah, but people also end up getting frozen in there too, and they're just
almost like preserved with it.
Yeah, like you were talking about, like in Jurassic Park with the, where they get the dinosaur DNA from the mosquitoes or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So I always felt bad about that. But then I thought about the old guy, and then she gave me a pass. She's like, no, he's kin, and you'll come to understand that, but that's your journey. She didn't want to give away too much. She said it's been kind of an interesting journey as I've gathered that. But yeah, I think about that.
Isn't there isn't there a UFO species supposedly that manifests like that?
Ooh, as like little
Yeah,
Gnomes?
like looks like a gnome looking thing. Because there's different ones. There's like the
I know.
reptilians
Well, I think they're all
and like the
shapeshifters. I
space
wonder.
brothers and like all like
Yeah.
or maybe I could be thinking about fairy stuff, or I
I
could be
think you
thinking
are.
about Terrence
Well,
McKenna.
fairies,
I have no idea.
well, it's Fae. I think about the gnome as Fae, and that's why I so relate. I call myself a
I
mountain
mean,
troll
it's
for a reason.
probably more like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I see now where you're coming with that, because that's
but what if,
when they were like, well, he's family, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So it's kind of like, oh, okay.
okay.
You're at least spiritual, metaphysically somehow connected. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that like what's interesting to me is everybody kind of collectively finding that for whatever reason in the last couple of years, people's memories of these gate programs and what was done to them by adults under the
It's like they're
guise of,
coming back.
they are. Yeah. It's
And
like
I don't know if that's
it's like it's
I
like
don't know if
the
that's
amber.
people. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Well, I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say it's like that amber fog that they put over everything has eroded enough to that we can see it and we can remember it in ourselves, in our
I don't.
stories.
Yeah, it's either that or like there are people who that didn't work on and they've remembered it, and
What?
now that and as they bring it to our attention,
Yeah.
it sort of like reactivates our brains, like, oh yeah,
Yep.
because that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
You and
It
I just
was
started texting about this, and I was like,
exactly.
oh shit, I remember this now. And I hadn't thought about it in years, and
No.
probably would have never thought about it again if we hadn't started that text conversation with one another.
Yeah. What I do know about the whole thing is I really do feel like there is, I don't know if it's sinister. I don't know if they were trying to get a list of people with gifts and
I don't know
talents.
how
And
sinister. Yeah,
I don't know
how
either. I
sinister
don't
it
know if
really
it was
was.
too.
I feel like it was more like um hey, we needed smart people to go up against the Russians. We
Yeah,
needed
because they're
engineers,
doing this.
astronauts. We need those kind of people. So
Yeah.
we got to like kick up, and they're over here studying if people are psychic, so we should be studying if people are psychic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
to be a thing like that, because if they threw out any amount of money, and this was not cheap, okay?
Yeah.
If they threw out any amount of money, it had to be part of the military industrial complex,
Yep,
or
it did, because
there's
that's
no
where
other way they justify it. Yeah.
that's where the steady income was. And
Yeah.
on top of it, that, our time frame, I think that there are going to be listeners out there that it's the norm that schools have your records. You hear about your file. You're never given your file. Like when you graduate from high school, they don't hand you your diploma and then your school files from kindergarten on, but they have them. We never get those back. We were of the age group where nationally they had a monetary incentive to keep records and report to the federal government for the first time. That's in our lifetimes. That was totally new. It was just within states, it was within counties, it wasn't anything else. And so, just pointing out that these things that people don't see, they're invisible to them. They're not normal. They weren't always that way. There wasn't this sharing of information about you. And then on top of it, remember, when as a senior in high school, did you have to take a test to see where you would land vocationally?
Yeah, and this was always my issue, and why I was like, I never thought I got into any of that shit, was because I'm horrible at math. Like I have that other brain.
Yes.
Like where math is just like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? So I remember I got a perfect score on the essay. I got almost perfect scores on the. I think they tested us in. There were 4 parts. There was you had to write an essay. You had to do English. You had to do history and social studies, and you had to do math. And I remember I graduated high school. I got the math by 8 points, and everything else was almost like straight up
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If a class called math for teachers didn't exist, I would probably still be trying to get out of college right now.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
I
my
just
gosh.
I don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I'll talk. You can talk to me and I'll talk to you back about like quantum physics and weird shit like that all day.
Right.
But you hand me a fucking dry erase marker and you go, hey, go write the equation on the board.
No.
I'm fucked. You know, I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand the math part.
It's interesting because I went to the other side of the mountains, and during college, I was really good at math. Like I was always in honors, geometry, and this and that. And
I would have been like, Jen, I
do
don't
my
know how to do
homework.
this. Please.
And I would have taught you. I would have taught you. You could have given me your Richie Rich comics.
I honestly, I appreciate it. I don't think I was teachable. I just don't.
I think everybody's teachable.
Okay. I don't get that.
Wow. Well, if there's anybody out there that has recollections of their GATE programs and things that we totally missed in our write-up, because I tried to do a deep dive, but I want to hear from you. And so be sure to
we are really into this, please.
We are so. We would love to do a follow-up.
If you have stories,
or you taught that class, if you're a teacher and taught one of those pull-out classes,
if you gave those hearing tests, if you know what I mean, if you want to tell us anything about this or anything we missed or anything we got wrong, or if you want to tell me I'm a crazy person and they were just giving hearing tests, don't say that to Jen, but you can say that to me. You can tell me I'm a crazy person.
You can tell me too. It's fine. I am not hurt by anything. Believe me.
Yeah, but seriously, let us know.
Let us know.
I feel like this is not anywhere close to the first time we're ever going to broach.
I don't think so either. We're both kind of obsessed with it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next week, be well, you guys out there. We love you so much.
Bye, everybody. We love you. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Fucking clankers. Fucking clankers.